Hey, everybody. My name is Alex Barrios. I'm with the IGAN Foundation of America. And every Friday during Donate Life Month, I'll be interviewing a living kidney donor and a recipient possibly to talk about their experience through this process. Today, I'll be speaking with Monica and her parents, Joe and Renee. Monica is the recipient, and her parents both were fortunate to donate to both Monica and her brother. They live in, if I'm correct, Mobile, Alabama. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So welcome you all to today's meeting. And Monica, I'll give you the floor here right now, these first few minutes, just to kind of share your story with your kidney disease, and then we'll kind of go dig into the recipient story. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I've actually had two transplants.
Okay.
My first one was in 2004 from a family friend, and after some kind of unknown virus, not the one that's going on now, I received a second kidney from my dad in 2007.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with IgA in 2003, I think. I'm not 100% sure about that. I can't remember that far back.
No problem.
And so I'm going, August will be 13 years and no other issues.
That's
so
wonderful.
far.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Great. Thank you. So Joe and Renee, and I can speak, Joe, to you, I guess, because you're donated to Monica. Can you tell me a little bit about your story and your process as to why or how you came to, what you knew about kidney donation and kind of where that came from and how you decided to donate to her?
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Hello, little brown girl.
Hi.
It started with our youngest son, Brian. Yes, the wife gave her kidney to him, and this is where we picked up on the donations and such. Up until then, I never knew nothing about organ donation. There was nobody in the family, but we learned a bunch with Brian. Mm-hmm. And maybe by the time Monica needed hers, we were ready. So we did what we had to do. And I'll say this, it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was the best thing I ever done. Yes, we made the little girl, and then when she got broke, we repaired her. Mm-hmm. And now she has got a beautiful family and everything. So it was well worth it.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. Thank you. Now, Renee, I may ask you, I know your son's not obviously in this video, but knowing it started with him, could you share a little bit about that journey? And maybe you can, and Joe, you can talk too as well, like that first start, because by the time Monica needed it, you knew kind of what to do. So what was it like the first time around with that process and understanding the disease and with your son?
It was very scary.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the first time we had ever had any experience with donations mm-hmm. or organ donations. It was the first time we had any experience with kidney problems. Mm-hmm. We had to do a lot of homework. It wasn't as easy back then.
Sure.
Joe and I both did tests for him to find out if we were compatible.
Sure.
Match, and we both were actually identical. It was 50-50 with both of us.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to happen to be with Brian when he found out that we were both matches. Mm-hmm. And I stepped up, and Joe didn't get the opportunity, which he would have done, of course, in a heartbeat.
No, she pulled the fast one. I was supposed to donate to the first child. Uh-huh. The next thing I know, she comes back and tells me, I'm donating. I said, okay.
Joe was at work, so it was, I was there, and I did it, and it, like Joe said, it was the best thing we've ever done, other than having them.
So what did you all think about the process and kind of meeting with the team and kind of going through, meeting with the surgeon and the social worker? Like, what was that process for both of you, for both Monica and your son's transplant? Were they different, the same, and what you can remember to that, speak to them?
Mine was pretty straightforward. And of course, mine was before they started the laparoscopic.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a rather large scar on the side of mine. Mine was a longer recovery time because of that.
Sure.
There were a lot of tests that were run that we had never even heard of.
Sure.
But the people, the primary doctors and stuff, they told us everything that was going to happen, told us how it was going to happen, and it was very straightforward. And as we learned more, it was less scary.
Of course.
You know, but with Joe now, with Monica though,
Yeah.
when she lost her first one, and Joe we couldn't find a donor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we got with the primary doctor and with the hospital UAB.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And found out he had high blood pressure and had been on high blood pressure medicine for a while.
Right.
So we got with them and got on a routine to get his blood pressure down, which he did.
Awesome.
He got his blood pressure down, got off the pills,
Mm-hmm.
lost weight, ate better, that kind of thing. And UAB actually accepted him to give a kidney to Monica.
Except for one doctor.
Yeah.
And I say that he held out. He was an elderly gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
And even the morning of the transplant, he'd come in my room. He checked me out and told me right to my face, I still say you're too old and you had high blood pressure. I said, yeah, you might have said that. I said, but I'm going to do this. And we've done it. I mean, understand, he's got a job to do too.
Sure.
And that's part of what we went through. I always felt like me being family, me being her father, my kidney was the best. And I just held out. And I mean, she's going on 13 years now. And I'd be the first one to tell anybody, try to go through a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I realize it ain't always.
Doesn't happen that way. Not every, but right. You guys did it. It worked. That's what matters.
Worked. It really worked.
That's great to hear that. And in the work I do, I work for the University of Kentucky for a transplant program as an advocate, and I travel and talk to patients and family like yourselves about about kidney donation and kind of the importance. And something that Renee, you said that really hit home with me was that, you were initially scared, but you were able to, through the education you took and through the conversations you had with your doctor, that you were able to kind of like realize it's not so bad. And that's what this platform is for, is to talk and kind of give education and awareness to the folks who are going to be watching this later on down the road. And keeping, this will be in our IGAN library for whoever knows how long. But I'm glad to know that even though you had your apprehensions, you still were able to kind of get the education and the awareness out that they gave you, and you felt you were able to still do it twice, both you and Joe. It's amazing.
The healthcare workers were great.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to put a plug in for UAB in
Sure.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Go for it.
That hospital has a room, a nurse or a doctor, and a machine in every part of that hospital. Whatever it is, they can fix you.
Mm-hmm.
We have been up there numerous times. We still go with our son.
Sure.
And I'm telling you, those people are nice.
Yeah.
They know what they got to do, and it's a nice place to be. I felt real good in there. And the difference in Renee giving her kidney to Brian and the difference in me giving mine to Monica,
Mm-hmm.
Renee has a scar on her back.
Oh, on the side.
On the side. I have 3 little puncture holes
Mm-hmm.
in my stomach and part of my chest.
Right.
I came home and I lost maybe a week of work.
Okay.
I come home with no pain.
Mm.
Other than when I picked myself up, I had a little soreness in my stomach muscles,
That's natural. Yeah.
and I have not had a problem since.
That's
Yeah,
great.
the only pain he has was having to leave his wife and his daughter up at UAB
Sure.
when he came home.
Sure.
That was rough.
What was the difference between donations between your sons and Monica's? how many years, or what was the time frame?
Monica was 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And mom's was 99.
Okay.
And Brian was 99, 8 years.
Oh, got it. Okay, I'm just curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of question is, I think I know the answer, but I've been asking everybody this question, for both Joe and Renee. Any second thoughts on donating? I think I know the answer, but I like to know. Some people, have said, I've had many stories where people are like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I was shocked, but I have to ask it. So you answer the way you feel you need to answer, but have you any second thoughts?
None.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
I have none, and I hope it never happens. But I've got one more kidney for my kid.
Yeah.
Can't take that one.
Nope.
That's just
Well,
the way
and I think they're a little biased on their no regret thing because for
Of
their
course.
kids.
Family. Yeah.
But my aunt, my mom's sister,
Uh-huh.
donated in a chain to get Brian his second one, and then like I said, our family friend, and I think I can speak for both of them. I don't think they had any regrets in doing it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I kind of figured. Yeah, I always wonder, because I've had people tell me they just unfortunately in certain situations just felt like, I think they needed like some validation, or you'd be surprised. You'd be really surprised with some people. I mean, in our conversation, I feel like we're all selfless folks who are wanting to give as much as ourselves to one another. And I think that I was surprised to hear some people like, yeah, actually I was, and I couldn't believe it, but that's why I had to ask it. I just, so for Joe and Renee, have you all had any surprises that you thought, like when you donated your kidney, both and within the 8 years between your son and Monica, like, was there something that caught you off guard, or something that you were pleasantly surprised about? And when you donated your, the kidneys, your respective kidneys?
We have not had any problems.
That's good.
Everything's been good.
Mm-hmm.
As far as surprises, I think it kind of goes along with what you were saying with some of the things you hear.
Right.
And just talk of people who don't want to do it, or for whatever reason don't step up.
Exactly.
And that surprises me, especially when it's a family member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've had more people tell me that they wish that they could have done what I've done as far as helping out the children. And again, that makes me feel good. I've always felt like, it's the best thing. It is the best thing I've done since I got married.
Sure.
Yeah. But one of my worries now, especially now, after our daughter lost first kidney because of an unnamed virus, is their immune system is weak, so to speak. They take medicine every day. And like right now with this virus going on, I'm worried that because they're weak, that they would be the first ones to catch it. Now we are doing a very good job on the staying at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're doing everything we can possibly do. To show you how we're doing it, I went to my daughter's house yesterday to see my other two grandchildren.
Sure.
That I have not touched for over a month.
Mm.
I sit in the truck and talk to them.
Like through the window. Yeah? Like through the glass. Yeah, oh yeah.
And Monica and her husband brought them over here one evening.
Mm-hmm.
We talk and we do FaceTime.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
But that's the only thing that worries me about all of this, is the fact that they're weak. Other than that, they can do they have done anything they've wanted.
Yeah.
That young lady right there waited till she was 44, 45 years old to have her first child.
I was 41 with the first one, 45 with the second one.
Yeah.
Okay. She's got 2 beautiful children now.
Yeah.
Because
with one
of
kidney.
kidney donation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
and a good husband.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I can speak to that as well. Like I was in my 20s. I was 26 when I got diagnosed with my kidney disease. had my transplant now 13 years. And if it wasn't for my kidney donation and my living donor, I would have not been able to become a father. And I have 2 kiddos myself. I have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. So yeah, I can relate to that, things that we're able to do now that, that I was able to get that second chance at life. And to your point about the COVID-19 virus, it's true. I mean, being quarantined and having to make sure you wash your hands. I feel like sometimes, maybe Monica, you can speak to it as a patient like myself, but like, I feel like the world is catching up to what we've already been doing for the last 13 years.
Yes, I have probably not been as diligent as I should have been in the past, but it's definitely an eye opener.
Exactly. And when you see, so I think for folks like ourselves, when we have to kind of keep our hands washed more and making sure we're not around sick people, like I find that most people, for me and my experience with my disease, if I get sick from a virus, and I've gotten sick over the years, of course, I found I don't usually catch things easier. I get sick and stay sick longer because my immune system's trying to fight it off. Whereas some folks catch things like, catch it so quickly, like they'll get a flu like within a day and, they just get sicker easier. For me, it's not that I catch the virus. It's when I catch it, I'm just out for the count for like a typical flu is like 10 to 15 days for me.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried the flu shot?
Oh, yeah. I don't get a live vaccine. I don't get a live vaccine, but yeah, no, I get a flu shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I get a flu shot. Also, knock on wood, I haven't had the flu probably in 10 years. Though. If I've had it, I can't remember.
Sure.
That was another shock for us, though, with our kids. Both of our kids, as they were growing up, were rarely ill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was very unusual for them to be sick.
Sure. It is very interesting, I think, when you look at the dynamics of like, I was born a preemie. I was really young when I was born. I was like 1 pound, 3 ounces. So I had some health issues early on in life. I like as a newborn and stuff, and was in a NICU for a while. But then as I got older, after age 6, I was pretty much normal and had no health issues until I became a young adult. And found out from there, when I got my kidney disease, I found out I was only born with 1 kidney and it was failing when I thought I had the flu.
My gosh.
Crazy story. Yeah. So
and the other thing, whenever Brian was diagnosed with IgA, and a few years later, Monica started feeling worse or bad.
Right.
The doctors tried to tell us that it was not IgA, that she had something else wrong with him. And I was like, no, you're not going to tell me that I have 2 kids that have different kidney diseases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as it turned out, they found out later that it was the IgA because which of course they're still in the not genetic.
Yeah.
It's not genetic. So, but she had it, and it kind of makes you wonder.
Sure.
Well, we took our whole family down after Brian was diagnosed. We took the whole family down to the clinic and had them all tested.
Mm-hmm.
We have an older son, and we had them all tested. And I think, isn't that when we found out about Monica?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Julian, he's at UAB.
I know Dr. Julian, yeah.
Yeah, he took blood samples from all of us down here in Mobile, down in Mobile. So
cool.
Dr. Julian was phenomenal. He's great.
Yeah, I met him at an IGAN event back in September of last year, I think. He's a great, wonderful man. Yeah. I really enjoyed working with him.
Very knowledgeable about everything.
He definitely is. Cool. So, and I'll ask these next couple of questions more for everybody. It's kind of an open-ended question for both Monica and you guys. But if you look at living donation, if you look at research, it's slowing down. Like people aren't obviously donating as much. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because there's not much education out there? Is it awareness? Is it lack of awareness? Is it people just are, just dismissive about organ donation and just say, oh, I found my back of my driver's license, I'm an organ donor. What do you all think? What's your take on, because figures are showing that it's just, a wait time to get a kidney in Kentucky, now mind you for a deceased donor, but to get a kidney is about 3 to 5 years. What is it in Alabama?
5 to 7, I think.
Longer for you guys. Okay. Yeah. But I'm just curious to know your thoughts or what you think about why living donation isn't pushed as well, or numbers aren't like, they're not as robust as they could be.
Well, it's just like this virus going around now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't want to go through the problems or the tests, or they're afraid of this, afraid of that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know it was slow.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there could be more educational things that people like you could do, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
But that's the only answer.
Oh, sure.
I think you just.
It's probably a lot of fear too, not knowing what that you could. I mean, aside from having one kidney, you can go on and lead a normal life.
Right.
And then maybe possibly just the not knowing that there's really, aside from being out of work, there's not really any cost to it.
Right.
Maybe just the expenses of being, at a facility for 5 days.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then the transportation of getting to and from.
Sure.
And then being at home and maybe out of work for a couple weeks.
That's probably the biggest, yeah. And I think you're right. I think I speak to that, Monica. I think that I know a lot of folks, because if you're local, yeah, it's great. And obviously there are people who are listed in multiple places who are getting kidneys. If it's not a living donor, like in your city, that they travel and like they'll go to, if you're in Kentucky, you'd go to like Indiana, up at IU, you go to Vanderbilt in Tennessee, you would do those kinds of things locally, just to get the kidney. I mean, if you don't have family, like we're in a case where you're a living donor, you're alive, it's different than deceased. But I think some people concerns I've heard are that they're like, well, I have to travel all this way, and I don't have time to take off, and this, that, the other. And those are some things that I know that we're trying to kind of remedy, kind of fill those gaps, and kind of talk about ways to help living donors promote it, or like kind of incentivize them a little bit, so that they can take the time off. If they're, I've heard of living donations where it's coming cross country, like people in California will donate. There'll be a cousin in California who has, another cousin in Connecticut, and there's programs out there now where that donor in California could kind of do most of their work locally out there in California, and then travel maybe once or twice to Connecticut to say get the kidney and do the surgery and recover there. And there's some funding out there that can help kind of, help the costs, like, with it's called the National Living Donor, NELDAC, the National Living Donor Assistance Corporation. So there's some stuff available out there, which is, I think, part of what I hope to bring an awareness like I'm doing today, but to bring out that, to know that living donor, that there should be no barriers for a living donor to be able to donate. They should be able to get funding and that kind of stuff.
On that note, of the hospitals sometimes will work with you also.
Yep.
I know when Monica's first transplant happened with the friend of ours, he was in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And he called one day and asked me what I was doing, and I was filling out postcards, sending them out to everybody on our address saying, we need a kidney. But he actually got into UAB, and actually another friend of ours that had airline miles flew him down.
Oh, cool.
And then the hospital tested him, and he was a match. He never had to leave the hospital again. He stayed. UAB went ahead and set up the surgery so he wouldn't have the extra expense of flying back and forth again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they did that. They did it right away. He called her from the hospital and told her, was she ready to come to UAB?
Wow.
So a lot of times you can get help where it's least expected.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an amazing. Yeah, that you don't hear those. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very good. But I think a lot of the problems with people donating now is the financial issue.
Sure.
And I think it's not only from the donor, it's the person getting the transplant too. A lot of times they won't do it because they're afraid they can't afford the medications,
sure.
Which is totally ridiculous. The 3-year thing is crazy.
There's conversations about trying to prolong that for the life of the kidney that I've been
Yes.
that I've seen and been
Yes.
part of, and it's been bandied about and talked about for years. Hopefully,
Gotta be cheaper than dialysis.
I know the number of games. I mean,
Blows
think
your
about it,
mind.
$80,000 a month for somebody to get dialysis. One person, you know, it's a lot of money. It's a money pit, and so.
Wow.
You look at dialysis centers and how much money they're making off of this, and then transplant recipients and transplant. The medicines they're expensive, but they can, if you're on generics, they can get cheaper. I mean, I'll speak to my experience in the beginning of the first 3 or 4 years I was on some name brand medications. They were expensive. I was like $1,500. I was like, okay. And then over time, I was able to get on the generics, so they became generics, and now I pay like $50. So, I mean, it's a much better deal.
Yes.
Much better deal. But so I'll continue on with a couple more questions. So what would you tell somebody, it's kind of the wrap up, what would you guys tell somebody who's thinking about becoming a living kidney donor? This is for Joe and Renee. What would you tell somebody, like, as a kind of a send-away, as like, okay, like, you know, if you had a chance to champion for living donation, what would you say?
Go ahead.
Do it.
Simple. Yeah, no. I like
In our experience, we talked to Emory, we talked to UAB, we've talked to Mayo Clinic, we've talked to Ochsner's through the years. They are not going to do anything that is going to harm the donor.
Exactly.
They're very strict on that.
They really are.
I know that things happen, but as a general rule, you're not going to be a donor if there's anything at all that they see.
They find exactly. Yep.
There's not a problem with that. And it's just, it's a good feeling. I mean, I can't speak for doing it for someone unknown, but I can't imagine that it wouldn't be a good feeling for anyone.
Well, in my case, because of who my daughter is, I didn't even think twice about it. It was never, I just didn't worry about any repercussions or any after thing, nothing. It was my way of preparing her.
There you go.
And like I say, I'm glad I done it. But I would tell them in a minute, especially if it's somebody in their family. I mean, I'm partial to that. So like my wife, I can't tell you about somebody that's not kin to you.
Sure.
I tell them in a minute, do it. It's your child. Do it.
Yeah, of course.
Do it.
I like it. I like it. No, it's simple. It's a very simple. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
I don't know whether Monica told you or not, but our son would be on here too if he could. But he was bitten by a mosquito and got West Nile virus. So he's doing okay, but it was rough on him.
Understand? That's okay. That's okay. Maybe next.
I will add to that. They live with us, his wife and the 3 kids. He has teenage daughters, and he's got a grown 21-year-old man that's getting married at the end of this summer.
Okay.
Our son cannot walk or talk, but the kidney's working great.
And Monica
he went through some things at the hospital that could have caused a problem with his kidney, and it did. The kidney's still going strong, and he's good.
Bless you guys for that. I'm sorry that he was going through it. Hopefully, he can recover from that, and he'll be back on his feet soon.
Well, if he doesn't, it won't be because we hadn't tried. We have a strong family here.
Sure.
And he lucked out too. He married a good woman. His wife.
Yeah.
She takes care of him.
Oh, wonderful.
So, and that's never been a problem with us. And we never had any doubts. So. But we done the best thing we could and say, come on over here, and it's best thing again.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you all giving me a few minutes of your time, and I really enjoyed getting to know you all. And hopefully, our paths will cross again at any kind of IGAN events in the future. I will be available for any questions if you guys have anything. Afterwards, it's done recording. And we can kind of go from there. Do you all have any other last minute questions, Monica, or anybody before we end here?
I'm good.
Okay. Right. You guys, anything last minute you want to chime in on?
I'm just going to repeat myself again. Just
do
it.
All right. I like
Good.
it. I like it. Good deal.
And if you ever come to Mobile, give us a call.
I definitely will.
All right, we'd like to meet you.
Well, thank you so much for the few minutes. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, girl. Where's our